Y'all got square away too.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. If everybody could start finding their seats, that would be great. We'll be starting momentarily. Thank you.
The 72nd Annual YMCA Youth Legislature is now called to order. Please rise and recognize the Honorable Youth Governor Pavel Shirley and Honorable Speaker of the House, Mr. Mac McCutcheon. You may be seated. At this time, I'd like to call on the House Chaplain, Daniela Bennett, to do the opening prayer.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together for the 72nd Alabama YMCA Youth in Government. Thank you for allowing each of us to come to our state capital safely. The Lord says, "For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them." Matthew 18:20. For all of us be present at our conference, allowing for understanding and knowledge. Let us accept one another, have the capacity for conversation and cooperation. Listen to the opinions of others, and give us enough courage and confidence to express our ideas with respect and openness. Amen.
Now I'd like to recognize the Secretary of State, Copeland Johnson, for the pledge.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, Speaker of the House, Chloe Kinderman.
Hello, everyone. It is my esteemed honor to be able to welcome Mr. Mac McCutcheon, Speaker of the Alabama House of Representatives, to address the 72nd Annual YMCA Youth Legislature. Speaker McCutcheon was elected to the Alabama House of Representatives in 2006 and has served as Speaker since 2016. Speaker McCutcheon represents House District 25, and we are so incredibly thankful to have him here with us today. So without further ado, Mr. Speaker, Mac McCutcheon.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. And let me say good morning and say what an honor it is for me to be able to stand and speak to you this morning. I am really impressed to see our young people, future of tomorrow, being here in Montgomery, our state capital, and being involved in the governmental process. We need your input, we need your enthusiasm, we need your interest in our government as we move forward for the future. We are in legislative session now, of course, and we go into session under a 105-day calendar. And then in that 105 days that we are mandated to be in session, then we have 30 legislative days. And the legislative week usually starts on a Tuesday, and we have session day on a Tuesday. Normally we have committee days on Wednesdays, and then we have session day on Thursdays. So the normal schedule is we're meeting 3 days a week, and then legislators go back to their respective districts on Thursday. As Speaker, I am in an administrative position, and not only do I oversee the House Chamber and the legislative process, but I also manage the full-time employees within the State House. So my duties require me to be in Montgomery normally 5 days a week during the session, and then I try to get home on a Friday afternoon and get back in my district. And then during the off season, I'm in Montgomery weekly working as well. The way the speaker is elected in the body in the House of Representatives is that once the election cycle is over and we serve 4-year terms, so it's a quadrennium, then the members come together and the speaker is elected from the body of the House members. There's 105 legislative districts in the House. And out of those 105 members, then they elect their speaker. And the speaker's position is to set up all the administrative issues that we have to deal with. We have to choose the chairman of every committee. We have 22 standing committees. The speaker chooses the chairman for those committees and then makes the choices of the vice chair and the committee members. Once that's done, then we have the body in place to conduct business. We work very well together, or at least we try to work very well together. We all have differences of opinion. Then the other house in the legislative body is the Senate. And there's 35 Senate districts versus 105 representative districts. Each House district has about 44,000 people. The Senate districts can have up to 150,000 people within a Senate district. What this does, it gives the different viewpoints on issues. Where we may be looking at an issue from a smaller group of people, such as 44,000, 40,000, 44,000 people, we're looking at a viewpoint from those people's perspective, where then when that issue goes to the Senate looks at it from a broader scale, where we may have one House district, a senator may have 2, maybe 3 House districts within that Senate district. And so he or she is not only hearing from one district, they may be hearing from 3 districts at one time on a particular issue. So it gives them a different perspective on things. And therefore, the House and Senate works very closely together. And of course, you may remember the little cartoon, I'm just a bill sitting on the hill, and the legislative process, how it works. You know, the House has bills that go to the Senate. The Senate has bills that goes to the House. Both houses must concur on a bill in order for it to go to the governor. And so that's the way the legislative process works. We must work together, and by honoring the process, it will work, even in these very tense political days that we have. I believe, as a leader in the state of Alabama, I think there are certain things that we must never forget. And some of my comments made to my colleagues in the House at the beginning of this session were that there can be no justice to people without an act of mercy. We must never forget that. We cannot force justice on people. We cannot make justice happen to people without having a sense of mercy. We, as elected officials, must refer to us as ourselves as servants. We serve a servanthood position. And if we ever forget what we're elected to do, then we will not be doing what we should be doing. In this time that we have politically in our nation and across our country, it's vitally important that we not forget that this is an elected position of the people, by the people, and we are elected to serve those people. And I tell the members in the House that I want you to represent your district, and then you bring the concerns of that district to this body, and then within these 105 districts of the state, we will sit down and we will convene in the House chamber, and we will take care of the business of the people in the state. And that's something that I hold very near and dear to my heart, and I think as a leader, that's what the people of Alabama would expect of us. I tell the members, too, that our actions as legislators demand that we abide by the constitutional law that we are sworn to uphold, both the national federal law as well as the state law and state constitution. And we must have respect for the democratic process, and we must remember that we do serve the people. Relationships with each other are very significant in this process. We are all equal according to the laws of this country and in the sight of God. And we must remember that we are all equal. No one is better than the other, and we all have a role to play. And relationships are so vitally important in our ability to accomplish anything. We can't judge each other. We can't look down our noses at each other. We can't point fingers at each other based upon our social status or our demographics of where we came from or the environment in which we were raised. We must stop and realize that we all have worth as people, and the relationships that we build, such things as integrity and trust, being able to speak truth to issues, being able to sit down and work with each other, having a difference of opinion, agree to disagree. All of these things are so vitally important to our governmental process in order for us to accomplish anything. Most of the bills and laws that are passed are a result of compromise. There's very few pieces of legislation that ever run through the process, the legislative process, that goes through as it was intended. There's always changes, there's always amendments, there's always tweaks to things based on other people's opinions. I mean, just look at this room. Look at the. I could name a subject like getting out of school early, and just that one issue there would bring up differences of opinion on that, something that could be as simple as just finding a date to stop school. But that's the nature of who we are in a democratic society. And so we must yield to that process, and we must allow the process to allow input so that we come up with a product that we can all live with and abide by. Because at the end of the day, the legislation that we pass will be law. And those are the laws that we must abide by in our society. I'm excited that you are interested. You're growing up in a generation. I meet with college students. I have the opportunity to meet with high school students, and I've got some grandkids that are in college, and then I've got one that's not far from going into middle school. And I talk to them sometimes. I'll get some of their friends around the table, and I'll just say, well, tell me about politics. How do you define politics in your world? And what do you think about the election and the process that we go through? And just ask them just questions about our government. And I'm surprised at the differences of opinion that they have. But that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Let us never get to the point that we feel like that we have to have one side leaning or overpowering another side just because we have a difference of opinion. Because there's always something out there for us to learn from and grow from. So I don't know if I'm supposed to ask. Am I supposed to ask any questions, or I'm kind of on your schedule, Governor? Okay. So, but I do want to say, please, take advantage of this time that you have. I was in Boise State years and years ago, which was something similar to what you're doing here, and we had Government Day, and I was elected to be the governor in Boise State, and I can remember some of my days back then of how we handled things and the way we viewed things versus the way the process was put in place at that time. And so we're constantly evolving, we're constantly changing and moving forward. But there's several, I'm going to leave you with this, there's several sayings that we have in politics. One is, don't burn a bridge today because you may have to cross over it tomorrow. And that goes back to relationships. Don't get so passionate or so angry at your colleagues over political issues or legislative issues that you just quit talking and you end up having a real problem in your relationship that you can't communicate anymore, because come tomorrow there'll be a new issue and a new day, and you may need that person to help you in the new issue that you're working on. Another thing is that there are many battles out there, but make sure you don't get involved in a battle that you may lose, because ultimately you want to win the war, not just a battle. And there are many battles leading up to winning the war. So always keep that in mind. And of course, all politics is local, and it is all local. The mayors, the commissioners, the local school boards, all of these people who are elected to local office and have local political positions, it all starts there. And then it moves up to the state level, and then from the state level to the federal level. We have a lot to be proud of in Alabama. In my term, I'm in my third term, and in my terms that I have been serving in the legislature, I've seen many changes and seen some very difficult times politically. But we always seem to come out on the other side successful, and we are moving in a good direction. And one of the reasons that we are is because we are trying to work together, respect each other's needs, and I think that's what good leaders should be doing, bringing people together for the common good. So I'm anxious to kind of keep up with the legislation that you work on and the ideas that you have. It never goes unnoticed, and so I'll be watching and listening as you meet and things. So thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you for coming to speak to us this morning, Mr. McCutcheon. At this time, I've come to introduce you to a person who I'm sure you all know or will know by the end of this weekend. I've known him since middle school, and in that time, he's proven himself to be one of the most intelligent, capable, and friendly people I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. It goes without question that we could not have a better governor for this amazing conference this year. Without further ado, your 72nd Youth Governor, Pavel Shirley.
I think that's the nicest Griffin has ever been to me. Well, thanks. And hi, everyone. As Griffin told you, and you might have already known, my name is Pavel Shirley, and I have the distinct pleasure of serving as youth governor this year. I've often been asked why somebody would run for youth governor, especially compared to other positions at this conference. Like, I'm not presiding over a chamber. I don't get to debate. And I could give you a long, boring answer about like something with Washington, D.C. and not entirely hating paperwork and bureaucracy. But the truth of it is that this is really the reason. Because the people in this conference that aren't up here are really what it are really what it's about. And serving them is what I think all of our officers care about, and certainly what I care about. So I'm glad that all of you decided that this was the best way you could spend your weekend, because, you know, as cheesy as it is, I really don't think this place is too bad of a way to spend 3 or 4 days. Earlier last month, I had the unique pleasure of reading all 246 bills that you guys brought here in probably less than 2 hours. And while that might not seem like the most enjoyable experience, I was absolutely floored by the quality of legislation and the thought and care every single person put into their legislation here. And so I'm really, really excited to see that as we go forward. Now, everyone's going to be really busy this weekend, but there's a few things I'd like everyone to keep in mind. First, please, and I really, really recommend you try to speak this weekend. Everyone, just by virtue of being here, has a voice, and by virtue of being a person, has a voice that deserves to be heard. There's no such thing as a bad speech or bad speaker if you give a speech as long as you care. Also, I can't speak this weekend, as I already said, and if I have to watch the same 4 people debate over and over and over in the Senate, I will be incredibly bored and get very irritated and frustrated with certain people's voices. Next, please reach out beyond your delegation. And this goes especially for people who aren't campaigning for an office. The reality of this conference is that 90% of people don't ever campaign. And if you don't reach out of your office because you don't have an incentive to, you're going to miss out on one of the best parts of this entire conference. I've made amazing friends all across the state. And honestly, more than any other sort of travel through the state or anything, meeting people is the best way to learn the many facets of the state of Alabama. And lastly, I would just urge you to take the time to slow down and appreciate your time here and the people around you. Whatever that means to you, please give it a thought and put a little time into that. You know, before you know it, it'll be gone. I still can't believe it's my last year. But if you ever have a question, a concern, or just you want to talk, please, I'm available. Any of the officers are available because really we're here for you. So again, thank you for coming to the conference, and I cannot wait to see what everybody does.
At this time, I'd like to recognize YMCA board member and circuit judge Jimmy Poole. He will be doing the swearing in of all participants.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Mr. Chief Justice, it's a real honor for me to be here with you all and encourage you to continue to participate in Youth Leg and make sure that all the Montgomery Catholic bills are passed. That's the closest I'm going to get to embarrassing my daughter. You know, Mr. Speaker, it's been said that no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Let's think about that, okay? You're all leaders, and you're very distinguished in your school, and you've accomplished a great deal. And you're here at Youth Legislature. Some of you are great orators. Some of you have analytical skills. Some of you just have people skills, one another. What you need to do in this youth legislature is to encourage one another. As a judge, I'm oftentimes faced with finding the bad in people, okay? And I'm forced to see it. What I try to do as a judge, though, is look for the good in others, because there's good in everyone, and we have to search for it. Same thing with youth legislature. There is talent in every single person here. And what you should do in youth legislature is to help each other search for that talent that the people have. And when you do, you'll be successful. You know, when you said, Mr. Speaker, that all politics is local, that's true, okay? And what we often find is that with politics being local, that sometimes we get lost in the shuffle, okay? But depend on one another and encourage one another and explore what you can do for one another. And when you do, they will know how much you care. Okay? Thank you. Please rise for the administration of the oath. And repeat after me. Raise your right hand. As a member of the Alabama Youth Legislature, I will serve the people of the state of Alabama. And will represent their wishes and concerns to the best of my ability. I will also protect the spirit of the YMCA. And help keep intact its dignity and character. As long as I am a participant therein. So help me God. Congratulations. Welcome. Have a great session.
All right. I know that rules is everyone's favorite part, so I will be nice and long. The most important thing that I can stress is that if you have any question, look in this book. It is your best friend. It is a multifaceted tool that can answer every question you could have. But if somehow it doesn't, any of the people up here, any member of governor's cabinet or staff, or your advisors are happy to answer. So if you have a question, come to any of us. To go through, I'm starting on this gold page if you want to follow along, but starting out with committees. Committees are assigned to each bill. You can look on the following 2 pages. Every participant has a committee assignment and a chamber assignment listed beside those, beside their name. So you look in there and it will tell you where you're supposed to go. Committees are where we rank bills based on favorability, not on things like whether or not you like the bill. So if a bill is very debatable, you might want to rank it highly because it is favorable. It is something that you want to see debated on the floor. There are a set number of criteria, and you need to, those are in the bill book. You need to pay attention to those when voting. The way that the voting works is you're assigned to a committee based on the topic of your bill. So like I said, the next 2 pages have the assignments for your committees, and you'll be able to see them. Also, the pink pages are the blue pages of the bill book are for the Senate, the pink pages are for the House, and the green pages are for the first-year chambers. In those, you can find specifically for those chambers what committee you're assigned to. So you go to your committee, and you'll present your bill with people who have similar topics to you, and then at the very end, after ranking the bills favorably or unfavorably, or voting them favorably or unfavorably, you will rank the bills. There is first priority through fifth priority. First priority is the bill that you want to see debated on the floor most out of all of the bills in your committee. Fifth priority is the bill that you want to see debated fifth most. Does that make sense? Wonderful. There's one major exception to the committee process, and that is the special order bills. These bills, there are 3 in each chamber. These bills are at the front of each section. So the Senate bills, for example, are on the front page of the blue section. And it's the 3 bills, and it has their author. These bills do not go through the committee process. They have already been assigned to the top of the calendar, meaning that they will be debated first once we move out of the committee process into the chamber process. Those 3 bills are in the Senate go to Committee 1. So you don't present your bill, but if you're one of those 3 people, you go to Committee 1. In the House, you go to Committee A. And in first year, you go to Committee N. So if you're special order, you go to one of those 3 committees. And those will be the first bills heard in each chamber, like I said. The next thing I wanted to talk about very briefly is the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has the right to hear any bill at any time during the weekend. So you might get called up. It's on the 8th floor of the State House. And you will be called up, and you'll debate whether or not your bill is constitutional. And it's not, if your bill is declared unconstitutional, it doesn't change anything. It is a recommendation, but it doesn't mean that your bill cannot pass. In fact, unconstitutional bills can pass through the process and frequently do. So if your bill is declared unconstitutional, I'm sorry, but it's not the end of the world. If you have any questions about where to go in the State House, the very back, it's not really a page, it's kind of the actual back section, has the order, or it has the State House directory for where everything is in terms of the floors. Please stay on floors 5 through 8. Those are the only floors that we need to be on. On the very, very back, behind that page is the order of what each chamber is going to be doing. So you can see where the chambers are going, when the chambers are going to be going to lunch and dinner, and when they'll be dismissing, things like that. So the schedule is printed on the back of the bill book. It is also printed on your name tag. So if for whatever reason you don't have your bill book, you can always look at your name tag, but you should always have both of those things on you. The next thing I want to talk about very briefly is electronic devices. There is no cause at all to be on any devices in the weekend, with a few notable exceptions. But no Snapchatting, no playing games, nothing like that. The only reason to use a phone is for research. And if you do that, we ask that you do step to the back of the chamber. So don't be researching while in chamber. Step to the back, and then once you've finished researching, you can come back to the front. The other exception is that the calendar is a little bit different this year. We do not have paper calendars this year. They will be online. So immediately after committees, you need to go to the ALYIG website and be checking for the calendar, because you need to know when your bill is going to be debated. If you're one of those first couple of people, then you're going to go after the last special order bill. And a really easy way to do that is scan this QR code. This QR code on the front of each section, so if you're in the Senate, go to the Senate page, scan that QR code, and it will take you to the calendar for the Senate, or the calendar for the House, or the calendar for first year. And right now, that's actually just the order, or that's just a list of all of the bills, but once we go through the committee process, it'll take you to the calendar. So that's how you find the calendar. Finally, just a few housekeeping things. We are very privileged to be able to use the State House. That is something that they let us do every year, and we don't want to lose that privilege for any purpose. So don't damage any property. Don't mess with the senator or representative's things. There might be things on their desks. Don't mess with them. Don't press any of the buttons on their desks. And remember that at any point in time, any of the representatives or senators can listen to what you are saying at your desk from their office, which means that you need to act as if they are listening at all times. You don't want any representative to listen in on you saying things that you wouldn't want to be heard. We don't use the vending machines. The vending machines are not for our use for any reason. We can't even have food or drink or chewing gum in the chambers, so there's no reason to go to the vending machines anyways. Respect the property of all of the senators. Like I said earlier, if you have questions, please ask the advisors, the officers here, and consult the bill book, like I said. And then, as a final thing, any sort of alcohol, nicotine, tobacco products, none of that is allowed. So don't want to have to send people home, but we will do that. It's a very strict policy with zero tolerance. And then something that will be discussed more once we get to actual chambers is that we are introducing something new this year called non-debatable technical questions. They will be something that we introduce for every bill, and it's just a period of time to ask questions that aren't debatable, they're technical. It's just so that we can all gain a better understanding of the bill. This will be discussed more once you get to chamber, but just letting you all know for now. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Allison Gaston, the first-year PO, to do dismissal.
Please rise and recognize once again Youth Governor Shirley, Speaker McCutcheon, and the officers as they depart. Thank you. Are you good? Keep on clapping until I bang the gavel once more. You may be seated. Please be seated and remain in your places until we call your program area. All senators, please make your way to the buses in the front of the hotel to travel to the State House for committees as listed in the bill book. Only senators. All Supreme, sorry, never mind. You're good.
Hey everybody, I'm going to make a quick announcement. If somebody has seen a gray and green North Face backpack, if you can find me, I'll be in the back of the room. It is a gray and green North Face backpack. If you have seen it or if you accidentally picked it up, just come bring it to me. I'll be in the back of the room. Thank you. think he's waiting by the buses, and
Okay.
when it's clear, he'll come back forward.
Perfect, thank you. Y'all stay sitting.